family members. They are also coaches and friends. I need to confirm, however, that of those people who are viewing on YouTube, none of those people are opposing counsel, opposing team members, opposing coaches. Unless you fall under an exception, I believe there's an exception where a family might have have two siblings in competition, but otherwise, competing teams are not allowed to watch or record anything that is done here. And of course, only the CBA can record unless you have permission. Even though you're on YouTube, you can't record this unless you have the permission of the CBA, although you are certainly can view it live. The Colorado Bar Association, of course, has the rights under the rules to use your images and record this for all purposes. As you probably remember from yesterday, and if you have participated before in these competitions, there will be no recesses allowed, except on, in my discretion, for health reasons, or if we have some technical difficulty that we have to fix, given that this is virtual and not live. So if there is a problem, a health problem, make sure you or one of your team members inform me immediately. That way we can address that issue. Otherwise, there will be no recesses unless I call them. I'm going to ask each of the scoring panelists, and do we have the scoring panelists on the screen? Or can I get them on the screen? I'm sorry. We've already, I'm sorry, I had this problem yesterday too. I called the scoring panelists up all after asking for conflicts, so I don't need you anymore. When I saw scoring panelists, I was thinking of timekeepers, and I did the same thing today, so I apologize. Do we have the timekeepers? And if so, can I see them on screen, or raise your hands? And who is the, that is for the defense. We have our timekeeper. Do we have a timekeeper for the plaintiff? Mr. Lane, and also for the defense team. And I want to know if both of you are ready. For Mr. Lane, for the plaintiffs, are you ready to go?
I'm ready, Your Honor.
Okay, and I don't have your name, ma'am. I could use it.
My name is Zoe Wilkinson.
And are you ready as a timekeeper?
I am ready as timekeeper. However, we are short on computers, so I won't be able to post the time in the chat, but I will be keeping time in the room and showing it to the attorneys here, if that's okay.
Okay, so you will not be able to use the chat to give a time posting?
Right, but I will keep time for both teams. And if there's any conflicts, I mean, I'm sure we can sort it out.
Okay, Mr. Lane, that just means we need prompt and frequent time from you. And if it is Ms. Wilkinson, is that correct?
Yes.
If Ms. Wilkinson has a problem with a posting that you make on chat, we will, I'll deal with that. Is that all right with you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great, thank you very much. I need to remind you, as you probably don't need to be reminded, but I will remind you, if there are any disputes that arise, whether they are inside or outside of the competition for any reason, you must raise those in accordance with the rules, whether the rules say you raise those with me, or if you raise them later on with the Rules Committee. We will keep as close as we can with our two timekeepers. We will keep a accurate time, and we will enforce those times. if a timekeeper says time is up, it is ultimately up to me to stop the whatever examination or opening or closing is happening, and I will do that. I will stop you, because if you have not finished your examination, well, it just stops, and there's no the jurors may take that into account. But if you keep talking, they will really take that into account. So please understand, when time is called, stop. I'm going to ask now that the lead counsel, first for the plaintiff, give me just a moment here, Mr. Samford, if you would introduce yourself, and also ask your co-counsel and your witnesses to introduce themselves to the court and to the jury. Mr. Samford, go right ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Elijah Sanford. I do the opening, I direct the examination of Carson Durst, and I cross Dr. Devin Williams.
And if you would introduce your first co-counsel, and they will go next.
My name is Giovanni Malone. I will be doing the closing statements, the direct examination of Dakota Weirs, and the cross-examination of Blake Doncourt.
And next for the plaintiff.
My name is Metzli Jimenez. I will be doing the direct of Casey Rogers and the cross of Skylar Weirs.
And Ms. Jimenez, you go by the first of your last names, not both? As in, where is Ms.? Oh, there we are. Yes, Ms. Jimenez. It's Jimenez. I have Jimenez Cornejo. You go by Jimenez for this competition. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Great. Okay. I like to get everybody's names straight. Nothing worse than a judge mispronouncing or missing a name. And if we could have your witnesses, please, your first witness.
My name is Ellen Clark, and I'll be playing Carson Durst.
Thank you. And our next witness?
My name is Bennett Lane. I'll be Dr. Casey Rogers.
Thank you. And our third witness for the plaintiff?
My name is Athena Encinius, and I'll be playing Dakota Weirs.
Thank you very much. And for the defense team, Mr. Delgado, if we could have you first, and then please pass the baton to your co-counsels.
I'm Sergio Delgado. I'll be conducting the direct examination of Blake Doncourt, the cross-examination of Dr. Casey Rogers, as well as the closing.
Thank you. And your first co-counsel?
Hello, my name is Larry Knox, and I will be doing the opening statement. I will be doing the direct examination of Skylar Weirs, and I will be doing the cross-examination of Dakota Weirs.
Thank you. And third attorney.
Hi, Your Honor. My name is Maddox Jones. I will be doing the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams and the cross-examination of Carson Durst. Also, unlike my fellow counsel, they will be walking on and off screen as needed throughout the trial. However, I'm doing this from home and I'm not in the room with them, so I will just be turning my camera on and off as needed.
Thank you. And I have, Mr. Jones, I have a name, apparently the wrong name written down here. Written down is Sage Maddox. That is apparently not your name. It is Maddox Jones, correct?
Correct, Your Honor. I apologize. I go by Sage at school. It's my name, so that's why that's put down. But yes, my first and last name are Maddox Jones.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the first name doesn't matter. You're Mr. Jones to me. So if that's acceptable to you.
Absolutely, Your Honor. Thank you so much.
Good. And if we could have the first witness for the defense.
Hi, my name is Karen Mora, and I will be playing Skylar Weirs.
Thank you. And our second witness?
My name is Samuel Abraham, and I'll be Dr. Devin Williams.
Thank you. And our final witness for the defense?
My name is Jesslyn Zhang, and I am Blake Doncourt.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. All right. Just as a matter of procedure here, being masked is absolutely fine. No, there is no effect one way or another, whether you are masked or unmasked. All you need to remember is that if you are masked, please speak up and slow down, because both the volume of what you say and the speed with which you say it is affected by the mask. So if we can't hear you, I will interrupt, and that does not affect your score, the scoring. It just means we need to hear you, because we can't score you if we can't hear you. So with that said, I am going to swear everybody into the rules of the competition first. And I do that in 3 pieces: the scoring panelists, the witnesses, and the attorneys. And then I'm going to separately swear in the witnesses again for their testimony, not for the rules of the competition, but for their testimony. Normally, if this were live, if I had you in my courtroom, if I had a courtroom anymore, which I don't since I'm retired, but if I did have a courtroom, I would swear each witness individually as they took the stand. That makes everything much more realistic. However, since we are on Zoom, it is much more efficient to swear all of the witnesses at once to tell the truth. And that way, your attorneys can simply call them to the stand and we start, rather than my having to interrupt. So first, I'm going to ask all attorneys, please give me everybody on the screen, or as many people as you can, so that I can just see everybody, including all attorneys. And all of you attorneys, please turn your cameras on if you haven't already, and raise your right hands. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? You may nod your heads in agreement. Thank you. Now, witnesses. If I could have all the witnesses on camera, please raise your right hands. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? And please nod your heads. Thank you. Finally, I will need the scoring panelists. If you would activate your screens, raise your right hands, and we will go through the same drill. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? You may nod in agreement. Thank you very much. And you may drop your video. Now I'm going to ask for the witnesses back on camera, please. And as I said, I am going to swear all of you in, all of the witnesses. So please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide today in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may nod in assent. Thank you very much. And we'll drop all the witnesses now as far as video. And we'll proceed to this trial. Mr. Sanford, do you have any preliminary matters you'd like to address before we begin?
No, I do not.
No preliminary matters, good. And all things have been handled. And I do have, by the way, I do have the preliminary ruling that I made on 2 particular matters. So if you need to refer to those, please do at any time. On the defense side, Mr. Delgado, do you have any preliminary matters for me?
Yes, we do. We just, due to our limited amount of computers, we will not be able to screen share the exhibits. So we just ask that all judges, Your Honor, and all witnesses have a copy of the exhibits so that they can refer to them when we bring them up.
That'll be fine. The screen will show the exhibits at all time to all people, although until I rule on an exhibit, the jury, our scoring panelists, will not consider it, but everyone will see it. That just makes it easier for the scorekeepers. Now, are the scorekeepers, has there been an agreement as to who will manage the exhibits? Mr. Delgado, are you aware of any such agreement? Who's going to be
No.
posting them?
Yeah, as far as we don't have the capability to screen share. We don't have enough computers to do so.
Mr. Samford, do you have the ability to screen share our exhibits?
I'm sure I could find them, but right now all I have is the paper versions.
All you have is a paper version. Okay. That means, let's see. That's just going to take us a minute here. Hold on for just a moment. I need to make sure that I've got that here. I think I do. Give me a moment. I believe those are all in the volunteer brief. Let's see here. At least I think they are.
They should all be in the case file, I believe.
Oh, in the case file, not the volunteer.
I will post the link to the case file.
Well, I can bring it up here. I think we can, let's see. Yes, here's the case problem. All right, hang on just a moment. And jury instructions. Probably down at the bottom. Yes, here they are. All right, so what I'm going to ask the scoring panelists to do then is, tell me if you have any problem with this, our scoring panelists. I'm going to ask you to pull up the case on your screen, and that at the very bottom you'll find the exhibits. So if counsel on either side refer to exhibits, we will simply move our screen to the, I'm looking at exhibit 1 right here. See if I can rotate that sucker. There we go. Well, we'll simply move to that exhibit and deal with it on our own screens rather than having screen share. And that's no problem on either side as far as scoring. Your technical inability to do that is not your problem. It is ours. So we will deal with it, and we'll go from there. All right. Thank you, Mr. Delgado, for bringing that up. And I would ask each of you on who are sharing that screen, Mr. Delgado, it looks to me like you've probably got a mark on the floor there where you're all standing. I would ask you to move forward about, that's pretty good. It just makes it, not only can we see you better, but I believe we'll be able to hear you better. So if you confirm that, I'll be able to tell.
Is the voice quality better?
Yes, it is. Much, much better. Even just that short distance. So please ask all of your team who are sharing that screen to do that. And I knew you had something on the floor there, I could tell. Great, okay. Mr. Delgado, anything else? I'll wait till you finish there. Anything else before we move forward?
Yes, we just ask if anybody has technical difficulties that the time be paused for the duration which they try and fix it. And yes, that is all.
Absolutely, I will. Mr. Samford, anything else for the plaintiff before we start?
No, that seems all good.
And although, Mr. Sanford, you're going to have to speak up again. Do you have a remote mic or is it a mic on your headset?
Hold on, let me try something. Is this better?
That is better, yes.
All right.
Okay. Otherwise, we're ready to go, and we will have opening statement for the plaintiff, which is Mr. Sanford.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed with the opening statement?
Yes, you may.
Lush Fertilizer puts profits over people. Dakota Weirs loved to play the piano. From a young age, she would play with her grandfather. Sitting together in front of the piano with him were some of the fondest memories of Dakota's childhood. When Dakota's grandfather died when she was only 7, the piano made her feel like maybe, somewhere, she was still with her. Piano is the focal point of Dakota's life, but it was not the only part. Dakota was an honor roll student and the president of the student government. Dakota has taken every opportunity to succeed, no matter how difficult. Wherever Dakota went, they were passionate about helping others. Dakota spent their little free time outside of school helping the less fortunate as an active community member and a frequent volunteer at the local homeless shelter. Dakota's talents to the piano have helped her as well. They have won contests, awards, and praise from those who have heard her play. People would come from all around the state to hear them perform. Their crowning achievement with the piano was a full-ride scholarship to Juilliard, the most prestigious art school in the country. Dakota's future is no doubt full of the musical successes and selfless community activism that they have exhibited so many times before. We are here today because the Lush Fertilizer Corporation negligently failed to exercise reasonable care to prevent creating an unreasonable risk of harm, that Drufo causes cancer. Because Lush Fertilizer failed to properly label and warn against the carcinogenic or cancer-causing effects of Drufo, by the end of this trial today, we will have proved by a preponderance of the evidence that the Lush Corporation manufactured a fertilizer containing Drufo, that Drufo is a carcinogen, and that because the Lush Fertilizer failed, it takes steps that would have protected Ms. Weirs in her reasonable use of the product. Today, you will hear testimony from 2 expert witnesses testifying the danger of Drufo, as well as testimony from the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, who has had her life ruined by the blatant and unapologetic negligence of the Lush Corporation. Since age 14, Dakota has spent her summers working as a landscaping technician for Haven Landscaping, where she earned the money she needed to follow her dreams and put herself through school. At Haven Landscaping, Dakota's job was to spread Lush fertilizer on the fields where they worked. Every day she has worked for the past 6 years, Dakota has been exposed to Lush fertilizer and its carcinogenic binding agent, Drufo. This exposure to Drufo is the sole cause of Dakota Weir's diagnosis with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a disease that causes extreme chills and chest pains, swollen lymph nodes, severe shortness of breath, and a constant fatigue. The disease has stolen her ability to play the piano and has left her unable to attend her dream school and deprived of her last connection to her grandfather. The 2 expert witnesses today are Carson Durst, an expert chemical engineer and someone who has personal experiences in the practices and ethics of the Lush Corporation. Carson is an expert on the safety and efficacy of chemicals and fertilizers and has a unique connection in the development of Drufo, as well as the in-house testing conducted by the Lush Corporation. From Mr. Durst, you will hear how the Lush Corporation found evidence that Drufo caused cancer and how they covered it up. And you'll hear from Dr. Casey Rogers, a PhD in agriculture and entomology, and a professor of horticulture and entomology, and a former employee of a multinational chemical corporation. They have worked to publish many scholarly articles on the dangers of Drufo. From Rogers, you'll hear the extensive research and testing they have done, testing which has determined, without a doubt, that Drufo causes cancer. At the end of this trial, my colleague, Mr. Malone, will review the evidence that's been presented and show that we have proven by preponderance of the evidence that the Lush Fertilizer Corporation had knowledge of the cancer-causing effects of Drufo and was negligent in its failure to properly label its packaging in order to warn against these effects. Lush fertilizer put profits over human lives, and Dakota Weirs suffers the consequences of their greed. In order to fix this injustice, you must find the Lush Corporation was negligent, and you must put Ms. Weir's life back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. And after each piece of this matter, I neglected to tell you, I always pause for a very short period of time, just so the scoring panelists can catch up. And I will call opening statement for the defense in just a moment. And Mr. Knox, we'll have opening statement for the defense. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. Jury, Your Honor, opposing counsel. Today, the plaintiff wants you to believe this case is all about profits over people. But the truth is, this case is about research and results. But before I get into all that, let me introduce my client, Lush Fertilizer. Lush Fertilizer has been in the fertilizer industry for many years, and throughout those years, they have really revolutionized the industry through the use of their chemical component, Drufo. And that chemical component, Drufo, is safe. Today, jury, the plaintiff has the burden of proof to prove you 4 things. 1, Lush made a product containing Drufo. 2, Drufo is harmful and Lush knew about it. 3, Dakota Weirs was a person expected to use the product. And 4, use of that product caused the damage. Now, there's no disputing that Lush made a product containing Drufo. And there's no disputing that Dakota Weirs was the person expected to use the product. Now, the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, used Lush Fertilizer with other chemicals, and along with other chemicals, had a lack of protection. And we have sympathy for Dakota Weirs' current condition, but Lush Fertilizer and Drufo did not cause damage. Now, let me introduce our first witness, expert witness, Dr. Devin Williams. Now, Dr. Devin Williams is the lead director in a forensic toxicology lab with toxicology certifications in 4 states. And after 4 years of his research, he has found nothing showing that Drufo and Lush Fertilizer is harmful. Dr. Devin Williams has also stated that the Dr. Casey Rogers study is flawed, with people using multiple products, just like the plaintiff. Dakota Weirs used multiple products. And now our second expert witness, Skylar Weirs, which is Dakota Weirs' twin, that is a journalist who has spent 1 year researching Drufo and wrote a series of articles on modern architect and has found no evidence that Drufo is harmful. And now that Drufo is harmful and Lush knew about it, and that Lush Fertilizer caused the damage. And now let's go on to our last witness, Blake Doncourt, which is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer. And that is an environmentalist who cares about research and results, not because of any upcoming lawsuits, but because he cares about the people and the environment. And jury, that's why you should find my client, Lush Fertilizer, not liable. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And we will pause for just a moment, and then we will have the first witness for the plaintiff in just a moment. And we'll now call, plaintiff will call the first witness for Ms. Weir's case. And is it pronounced Malone or Maloney, sir?
Malone, sir.
Mr. Malone. Okay, Mr. Malone, please call your first witness.
Your Honor, I would like to call Dakota Weirs to the stand.
And Ms. Weirs, you have already been sworn in. Mr. Malone, you may proceed.
Would you please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record?
Dakota Weirs, Weirs.
What is your relation to this case?
Well, I'm suing Lush Fertilizer because their products, also called Lush Fertilizer, made me sick.
And what do you mean by that?
Since I was 14, I worked as a landscape technician for Haven Landscaping. At that job, I regularly used Lush Fertilizer. Since my regular exposure to Lush Fertilizer, I developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer that attacks my immune system.
Now that we know why you're here, I want to talk a little bit about you. What is it that you do?
I used to play piano and spend time helping my community.
You mentioned that you used to play the piano. Why are you unable to do that now?
I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I began to rapidly lose weight, despite the fact that sometimes my abdomen would swell double its normal size. I began feeling I developed chest pains, developed chills, and my lymph nodes swelled. From then on out, I was too weak and too sick to continue playing the piano. I spent most days bedridden and trapped on my couch, unable to do any of those things I used to love because of the disease. It's too debilitating.
How long have you been playing the piano?
Since I was 7, though the piano was important to me long before I even started playing piano. It's still important to my heart, even though I may never be able to play it again.
Would you elaborate on how it was important to you before you started playing and why it remained so important to you?
It was my past and it was my future. Now it's nothing. My late grandfather was an accomplished piano player. I became mesmerized with the piano. From then on out, I used to play the piano with my toys underneath the piano all the time. I'd press the pedals over and over since they were the only part I was able to reach. When I was tall enough to reach the keys, I banged on them inconsistently, as soon as I began to play little ditties that I wrote myself. After my grandfather passed, I began taking lessons because my parents saw that I had potential. I learned how to play because it made me feel as if my grandfather was still with me. He used to let me sit on his lap when he played. He showed me all the different sounds that the keys made and how the pedals affected the tone. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma not only took away my future and ability to play, but also my connection that I had to my beloved grandfather.
And would you elaborate on how exactly your future was stolen from you?
Eventually, after years of consistent practicing and dedication, I became an accomplished piano player. I performed in recitals and concerts, and even won a few accomplishments. Piano was my life. People from across the state would watch me play. I was offered a number of scholarships. All my hard work and dedication paid off when I was offered a full ride scholarship to Juilliard, perhaps the finest musical conservatory in the world. It was everything I had dreamed of, and that was all stolen away from me by non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma itself. When did you start developing symptoms?
After working with Drufo for an extended period of time, just before I was set to leave for Juilliard.
And in what capacity did you work with Drufo?
I was responsible for spreading seeds and fertilizer for Haven Landscaping because I was not old enough to work with the machinery.
So in your statement, you originally mentioned that you only wore shirts and t-shirts. Why was that?
It was too hot outside and everyone else around me was doing the same.
And what did you do when you started showing symptoms?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
What did you do when you first started showing symptoms?
Went to the doctor.
No further questions.
And we'll have cross-examination, Mr. Knox, in just a moment. And Mr. Knox, you may proceed with cross. And go right ahead.
So, Ms. Weirs, you stated that you may not be permanently harmed, correct?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Ms. Weirs, you stated that you may not be permanently harmed, correct?
I may not be permanently harmed?
Yes.
Sure.
So you fear that you will never be well enough, correct?
Yes.
But there's still a possibility you could still pursue a career in concert piano, correct?
No.
But your doctor has not given hope, right?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
But your doctor has not given hope for your condition. Is that correct?
No. I don't know.
I think, Your Honor, I think that's objection. Like, she's like, it goes against her affidavit.
You may refer to her witness statement if you wish and ask her about it.
Your Honor, let the record reflect. I'm showing a clear and fair copy of the witness affidavit.
That's fine, and you may refer to it without showing it. You merely need to ask her about it.
The court wears in your affidavit on line 52. You read silently as I read aloud. You say, I fear I will never be well enough to pursue a career in concert piano, even though my doctor has not given up hope. That is your words. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
And you had time to reproof and look over this affidavit before you came into court today. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
And your signature is at the very end of this affidavit. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
Let's move on to while you worked with fertilizer, Ms. Weirs, you stated in your affidavit that on lines 61 and 62 that you just loved being outdoors and feeling the wind on your bare face and the wind hitting your lashes. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
And your boss told you to cover your face while working with these fertilizer chemicals. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
But it was just too hot and it was summer and it just felt so good in the moment. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
And you were technically, while working with fertilizer, supposed to wear sleeves, pants, gloves, while working with these chemicals, but it was just too hot and the wind just felt so good. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
And now let's move on to your twin, Skylar Weirs. So Skylar, your twin Skylar Weirs is on the opposing counsel. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
And she's using you guys' dad's inheritance to pay for her debts. Is that correct, Ms. Woods?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question?
Your twin, Skylar, is using your dad's inheritance to pay for her debts. Is that correct?
Objection, relevance.
And Mr. Knox, what is the relevance of what Skylar Weirs is doing with her inheritance? What is the relevance to the testimony of Dakota Weirs?
Your Honor, I'm trying to show that Skylar is has not been affected by this condition, being the twin, and trying to connect it and go on to go deeper into another point, Your Honor.
And Mr. Malone? What's the basis of this relevance objection?
I'm a little confused on what the inheritance has to do with establishing Skylar's non-connection. I'm confused why the inheritance should matter for Skylar not developing non-Hodgkin's.
All right, we're talking about credibility issues here. Why is Skylar's financial the financial impact that Mr. Knox has referred to, why is that not relevant here? Why isn't that relevant?
I don't believe that it pertains to the current situation and that it doesn't, yeah.
All right, I'm going to overrule the objection. I do believe there is a connection here, a financial connection that Skylar may have, as far as whether or not, let's see, whether or not her testimony is relevant. So I'm going to let Mr. Knox pursue this with Dakota Weirs. So Mr. Knox, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, let's backtrack and go faster. If you would have known non-Hodgkin lymphoma would have caused your condition, you would have done things differently. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
Isn't it safe to say you would have wear the sleeves, the pants, and the gloves, the required protective gear? If you would have known, you would have been in the current state you're in. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
I'm sorry, can you say that last bit again?
You would have wore sleeves, pants, and gloves, the right protective gear, if you knew what would happen to you. Is that correct, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. We'll have a redirect in just a moment. And Mr. Malone, you may redirect your witness.
Ms. Weirs, I do have one more question follow up on the t-shirts and the protection gear situation. So you've stated multiple times that the main reason you did not wear protective gear was because it was too hot outside. The conditions were too harsh for it. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Your Honor.
And Mr. Knox, your objection?
Leading question.
Mr. Malone, you'll rephrase even though this is redirect, it is still direct and you may not lead. So please rephrase. The objection is sustained.
I don't think I have any more redirecting questions then, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Knox, we'll have recross in just a moment. There was only one question asked, but you may recross on that if you wish in just a moment. And you may proceed, Mr. Knox, with recross.
Your Honor, I wish not to do cross.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Skylar Weir, I'm sorry, Dakota Weirs, your testimony is completed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your
And in
Honor.
just a moment, we will have the next witness for the plaintiff in just a moment. And Mr. Sanford, you may call your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Carson Durst.
And Ms. Durst, you have already been sworn. And Mr. We have, let's see, I believe we have Mr. Durst. Mr. Maddox will be doing the cross-examination. Is that correct? I'm sorry, it's Mr. Jones. I made that mistake and I didn't think I would. Mr. Jones, you'll be doing cross-exam, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sanford, you may proceed with your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Durst. Will you please state your full name and spell your last name for the court?
My name is Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Ms. Durst, how are you employed?
I am currently the lead product developer for Terrace Greenery.
And how long have you been worked in that position?
Since 2006, so about 16 years now.
And what are your responsibilities as a lead product developer?
As a lead product developer, I oversee Terrace Greenery's development of its line of fertilizers and lawn enhancement products.
Ms. Durst, why are we here today?
I'm here because I used to work for Lush Fertilizer as their product development engineer. In that role, I discovered a study from England that found a chemical compound in Drufo that might cause cancer.
Now, before we discuss the study referenced, let's discuss your background working with Lush Fertilizer. When did you first start working with Lush Fertilizer?
I first started working for Lush Fertilizer back in 2003.
And why did you work for Lush Fertilizer?
I worked for Lush Fertilizer because I grew up with Charles Doncourt, who was Blake Doncourt's oldest child. We played soccer together and we were best friends growing up. And eventually we went to college together at Arizona State University. I graduated from there with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and Lush Fertilizer hired me right out of college.
And what work did you do for Lush Fertilizer?
I was eventually promoted to product development engineer, so I worked on the development of Drufo.
And what did you do in that role?
Well, as the name suggests, I helped in the process of developing products, which was helping to develop Drufo, which was my biggest assignment.
And what is Drufo?
Drufo is a patented bonding agent that Lush developed to keep its fertilizer products preserved and intact. The chemical in Drufo was developed over the course of a couple of years, and it started in 2001.
And how are you involved in the development of Drufo?
I was tasked to research one of the chemical compounds that comprise Drufo.
And what did you learn as a result of your research?
In my research, I ended up finding a study from England, which concluded that
And before we get, hang on just a moment. Before I take any testimony about this report, I need to qualify this witness. So far, I've been getting background and her credentials and information to do that, but we won't go into the report or any conclusions yet. So let's get her qualified.
All right, Your Honor. Let's shift gears and discuss your relationship with Lush. How would you describe your relationship to Lush?
Well, as I mentioned, I was close with the Doncourt family. So my relationship started out great. But once I pointed out the study from England with the rats that proved that Drufo might cause cancer, my relationship went very downhill. And my annual performance reviews began to turn negative. I was even accused of skating along and not pulling my weight, but none of this was raised before I found the study.
Ms. Durst, why have you decided to take a stand against Lush Fertilizer?
I decided to take a stand against Lush Fertilizer because I believe that the company knew that Drufo might cause cancer.
And again, we're not, we're treading a very fine line here about what her opinions are when she testifies as to why she wants to do this, why she wants to take this stand. It depends on her, it's based on her opinions. So let's get her qualified as an expert first, and then she can testify to all of that information. But she's, I assume you're going to offer her as an expert, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's get her qualified first, get her credentials done, and then as I say, it's a very fine line there of her saying why she's here, which is not part of her opinion, but it's based on her opinion. You know, she wouldn't be here if she hadn't done that research, and she can't testify to that research until she's qualified as an expert. So let's get her qualified.
The plaintiff moves to tender Carson Durst as an expert.
Mr. Jones, any objection?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Opposing counsel hasn't actually qualified what field her being an expert in anything other than her having been an employee to a random company.
We're having a little connectivity problem. I think you might need to move closer. Move a little closer to.
I am so sorry. Can you hear me a little bit better?
Much better. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. I don't believe opposing counsel has qualified what field they would like Ms. Durst to be qualified as an expert in, nor have they provided any foundation for her being an expert in absolutely anything. All that they have told us is that she is an employee of a company and that she conducted research. That is all.
All right, Mr. Samford, if you could indicate to me and to the jury, but primarily to me because I qualify witnesses, which fields you want her to testify in, and then if you need to ask her questions about those fields, please do so.
Yes, we would like to qualify her as an expert in the fertilizer and toxicology field. We believe that Ms. Durst is more than just a random employee of a random company. She worked for Lush Fertilizer, which is the company that developed Drufo, the chemical at fault here today. We believe that Ms. Durst is an expert because of the extensive research and work she has done on the chemical on trial now.
Or if you could ask her questions, not about what her opinions are about fertilizer toxicity, but if she has done research in those areas, that's what I need to know.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you just ask her those questions and we'll proceed.
Yes.
I apologize, Your Honor. One moment, just to clarify, Ms. Durst has not been qualified as an expert at this point, has she?
She has not.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Durst, how are you involved in the development of Drufo?
I joined Lush Fertilizer in 2003. So I was mostly involved in testing Drufo, and I was eventually put on a team that looked at if Drufo was carcinogenic or not, and our research had found that there was evidence.
Before you give my conclusions here of your research, we just need to know what the research was, just the process.
Your Honor.
Just the process and also about toxicity, if you have that background and did that testing as well.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to ask that moving forward, if the witness would like to testify as to whether or not the product is in and of itself carcinogenic, i.e. testifying to the truth of the matter asserted, that they be qualified as an expert beforehand.
Yeah, and they will. That's why I've been interrupting, is before I get any opinions, I need to know what the background is so I can qualify her. So Mr. Samford, go forward.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Durst, can you please testify in more detail as to the research you have done while you're an employee of the Lush Fertilizer Corporation?
While I was an employee at Lush, I did a lot of research on Drufo, and I worked with a team of researchers to examine if Drufo was carcinogenic or not.
And what were your I can't ask what your findings were. How long did you work at Lush Fertilizer Corporation?
I worked at Lush from 2003 to 2006.
All right. Sorry, 1 second.
And do you wish to offer the witness at this
Right,
point?
Your Honor. In your capacity, in your new job at Terrace Greenery, what do you do?
At Terra's Greenery, I oversee the development of its line of fertilizers. So I am the lead product developer at Terrace Greenery.
And you would say that work involves a lot of technical expertise in chemicals and fertilizers?
Yes, I would.
And how long have you done that?
Since 2006. So for
So
about
that
16
is
years.
Well over 10 years of working with fertilizers.
Yes, sorry.
Mhm. Sorry,
And do you wish to offer the witness at this point, Mr. Sanford?
I do, yes.
And Mr. Jones, do you wish to do any voir dire on this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to voir dire?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Durst, have you conducted any studies on different chemical components in fertilizer?
I have not, but I have done extensive research.
Did you bring any qualifications or certifications to court today to prove that you've done any of that research?
Yes, I did. I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and I have over a decade of experience, as previously stated.
But you didn't conduct any studies of your own?
No, I did not.
So there's no research that you personally conducted on this topic?
Personally, no, I did not conduct any research.
So your expertise is limited to the work that you've done for individual companies, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to move that the witness not be admitted as an expert. Their level of knowledge is limited solely to the capacity of their position, be that at Lush Fertilizer or their newer position at Terrace Greenery. They're not an expert in agriculture or toxicology and in the field in general, in either field in general.
Mr. Sanford?
Yes, Your Honor. I would argue that they are an expert in both these fields. Their extensive career their extensive career in this topic has given them more than enough qualifications to be an expert. Also, their work with these companies is exactly what we're examining here at court, and their testimony would be extremely valuable.
All right, I'm going to overrule the objection on these grounds. As to Ms. Durst's experience in the area with fertilizers, that has not been challenged. She has worked with fertilizers for that period of time, and specifically with this with the chemical used by Lush. As to toxicity, Ms. Durst has not directly testified that she has expertise in toxicity of those chemicals. However, she did testify that her research was based on researching whether this, I've just forgotten the name of this chemical. Remind me, Mr. Sanford.
Drufo.
That Drufo, whether it is carcinogenic. And if she's researching whether a product is a carcinogen, that implies toxicity. So I'm going to allow it on those grounds. As to the that most of her qualification as an expert is based on that experience, that is permitted under the rule. The scoring panelists will, or the jury will simply take that into account. As to her credibility, she has not produced any reports of her own, although her expertise is based on experience and reading the research of others. That's fine. And on practical research she's done at Lush, the jury can take that into account in her credibility, but it does not impact admissibility of her testimony. So the objection is overruled. Mr. Sanford, you may continue questioning this witness about her opinions.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Durst, when did you learn of the study showing Drufo may cause cancer in rats?
It was documented in my lab notebook on June 10th, 2003.
And what happened after you documented the study?
Well, we gave all our notebooks to our product manager, Jerry Langley, who then compiled our team's findings into a single report that then went on to senior management. And eventually we had a meeting about it in December of 2003.
And what happened at that meeting?
Some of the scientists, or one of the scientists, pardon me, she expressed concerns that Drufo may cause cancer and that it may be linked to non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
And what did upper management at Lush Fertilizer do with the information that Drufo may cause cancer?
Specifically, I recall at that meeting that the information should be kept in the walls. And then later, after that meeting, a report came to me saying that further analysis is required before we can make any conclusions regarding the likelihood of the chemical compound at issue causing any long-term health effects, including cancer.
Objection, hearsay.
Mr. Sanford?
Your Honor, this evidence is extremely important to knowing whether or not there was knowledge at Terra Greenery about the potentially carcinogenic effects of Drufo.
Mr. Jones?
Your Honor, regardless of whether or not this piece of evidence is important to the case at hand, it is still not a statement made by the witness that is currently on the stand, so it's still hearsay.
Fair enough, but that's not what it's being offered for, as Mr. Sanford pointed out. The testimony is not as to the truth of the report, but whether or not I'm spacing out on the company name here. I'm sorry.
Lush Fertilizer.
Lush, whether or not Lush and people at Lush had knowledge. She testified that it was in her research notebook, whether or not that is knowledge to Lush, regardless of whether the report's true or not, only that they were aware of it. So it is not hearsay, not offered for its truth. Objection is overruled. Mr. Sanford, if you need to re-ask that question, it was answered, but if you need to re-ask it, you may. Otherwise, we already have an answer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Durst, what else, if anything, did the report say?
The report also concluded that baking Drufo might eliminate the possibility of it causing cancer.
You mentioned the report stated further analysis was needed. What further analysis did Drufo do?
To my knowledge, none was done.
And what prevalence does Drufo have at Lush Fertilizer?
Drufo was the goose that laid the golden egg. It was very important to Lush Fertilizer's financial success and the success of its fertilizers.
Ms. Durst, why did you decide to take a stand against Lush Fertilizer?
I decided to take a stand against Lush Fertilizer because I believe that Drufo might cause cancer, and I believe that Lush knew that Drufo might cause cancer, and they neglected to issue adequate warnings about the fact, and they still decided to release the product.
And what role does vengeance play in your testimony?
I would say that no vengeance plays a role in this testimony. I do deeply regret about my relationship with the Dawn Courts and Lush Fertilizer, but that is not the reason I'm testifying. I'm testifying because I believe that what Lush Fertilizer did was wrong.
There are no further questions, Your Honor.
We'll have cross-exam by Mr. Jones in just a moment.
Your Honor, if I may do a quick time check with the other timekeeper for cross and direct examination.
Of course.
Mr. Lane, what was your time for cross and direct?
For crossing, I have 12 minutes and 51 seconds. And for directs, I have 9 minutes, 17 seconds.
Okay, I have about the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you both. And Mr. Jones, you may proceed with cross-exam.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Durst, during your time at Lush Fertilizer, your coworkers complained about the quality of your work, didn't they?
That is true.
And your product manager also complained about the quality of your work.
Yes, that is true.
He even took the time to file reports about your work quality.
Yes, he did.
And when you were having trouble with all of this, you tried to go to Blake Doncourt for help, right?
I did.
And he turned you down.
He did.
He told you to solve your own problems.
Yes.
And when you left Lush Fertilizer, you weren't laid off, were you?
No, I was fired.
Yeah. You didn't quit.
No.
And you were fired, like you said, right?
Yes.
And when you left Lush, when you were fired, you went to work for a competitor.
I did.
And you're attempting to help them at overtaking Lush, aren't you?
That's not why I'm testifying. But yes, my role is to create products that outperform what Lush is making.
You are currently working on a product that's at the point of overtaking Lush Fertilizer, though, aren't you?
Objection,
Yes.
relevancy.
Mr. Jones?
Your Honor,
relevant
this goes,
testimony?
sorry, apologies, Your Honor. Could you repeat that?
What is the relevance?
This goes to the witness's credibility as well as their motive to testify in court today, as they're testifying to their relationship with Lush Fertilizer and their own company that they currently work with.
Mr. Sanford?
Your Honor, my witness's relation to Lush Fertilizer does not matter to whether or not Lush Fertilizer may cause cancer.
Although that's true, her intent in testifying, bias is always an issue. Whether it exists or not is always an issue. And this is a legitimate, she's working for a competitor. The jury will have to decide whether her intention is honorable, as she has said, or whether it is biased, as Mr. Jones is alleging. So objection is overruled. Mr. Jones, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would it be acceptable if I repeated the question?
Yes.
Mr.
If the witness needs the question repeated, you can ask her that. If not, she can just answer.
All righty. Ms. Durst, would you mind answering the question? Or if you don't
Yes,
remember,
please.
I can repeat it for you.
Can you repeat it for me, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. You are currently working on a product that's at the point of overtaking Lush Fertilizers on the market, aren't you?
Yes.
And as an expert in the field of, I believe you're qualified in toxicology and agriculture, right? As an expert in that field, do you believe that Lush Fertilizer, one of their products being found harmful, would be detrimental to the company?
I believe that it would be detrimental to Lush. Yes.
And again, your own company is already at the point of overtaking Lush.
Yes, we have a lot of work to do, but we are at that point. Yes.
All righty. Moving on. That study that you conducted at Lush, it required further analysis, didn't it?
Yes, but none was completed.
All right. The results weren't conclusive?
They were inconclusive. Yes, that is true.
So during your time at Lush, you saw nothing that could conclusively prove that their product caused cancer, could you?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that there was adequate reason to believe that more studies should be done to prove that it doesn't, but none was done. And so I do believe that there was evidence that Drufo causes cancer.
I'm sorry, during your time at the company, you only witnessed the one study being conducted, right?
Yes.
And that study was inconclusive.
Yes.
So during your time at the company, you saw nothing that could prove that their product was carcinogenic.
No, I saw a lot of evidence that needed to be analyzed that wasn't analyzed that may have proved that Drufo causes cancer.
You saw the one study.
I saw the study that I was a part of, and I also saw the study about cancer in rats because of Drufo.
I'm sorry, Mr. Durst, are you attempting to assert that the other study that you found online is a true and accurate source at this time?
Yes.
Okay, that study hasn't been admitted into evidence at this point. Your Honor, I will admit I'm not quite sure exactly how to object to that, aside to call it hearsay since the exhibit hasn't been admitted.
Well, you did ask the question. Let's leave it at that. She's answered the question that you asked. She did bring in a piece of evidence that is not yet admitted, but you'd asked the question. So if she knew anything, and that's what she said. So let's leave it at that and move on to another topic.
Alrighty. I just have one final question. As far as studies that you saw conducted by Lush Fertilizer while you were working with them, you saw nothing that could conclusively prove that their product was carcinogenic, correct?
Nothing that could conclusively prove because nothing was done to conclusively prove
So
it.
that's a
Pardon me.
yes?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
We'll have redirect in just a moment. Do we need it? If we could get a time check on what's remaining on redirect?
Your Honor, my timer is off for the direct examinations. But for cross examinations, I have 5 minutes and 11 seconds.
For recross?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And do we have a time on direct?
On direct, I had about 10 minutes left, and for cross, I actually had 8 minutes left. still.
Okay, well, we'll leave the cross to Mr. Lane, but for direct, you said 10 minutes?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and Mr. Sanford, you may proceed with redirect.
Your Honor, I don't believe a redirect is necessary at this time.
All right, without redirect, there is no recross, as you are aware. So Ms. Durst, your testimony is complete. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And we will, in a moment, we will have the final witness for the plaintiff, and that will be Ms. Jimenez in just a moment.
Mr. Lane, what was your time on cross?
And hang on for just a moment. If that was your question, I'm sorry. Well, was that Ms. Jimenez? Was that you? Oh no, I'm sorry. It was our timekeeper.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's because there was a little discrepancy, but you said we'll go with his time. So I just need to adjust my time.
Well, you had about 8 minutes.
Yes, I had 8 minutes left for cross, but he said he had about 5.
And Mr.
I just
Lane,
wanted to know.
you said you had 5.
I have a little over 5, yes.
Okay, and let's see. Since you are the you're the timekeeper for the plaintiff, Mr. Lane, we'll go, because it is the plaintiff's time and it is less time, we'll go with yours. All right. If it were different, I would make maybe a different ruling, but
This is the defense time.
oh, that's the defense time. I'm
Yes,
sorry. So the plaintiff's, I'm sorry, I had you switched. I apologize. But right, I have, and this is my fault, ma'am. I forgot your name already. Wilkinson, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Wilkinson. And which team are you associated with, the plaintiff or the defendant?
I'm here with the defendant.
Defendant. And Mr. Lane, you are associated with the plaintiff's team,
Yes, Your Honor.
is that correct? Okay. Since you're associated with the plaintiff's team and you're saying that redirect for the plaintiff is 5 minutes, that's what we'll go with. Correct?
Your Honor, I didn't have I have over 5 minutes for cross-examination.
Oh, you don't have a time at all for the plaintiff then?
No, I went with the defendant's provided time of 10 minutes.
I'm sorry. 10 minutes we have then. So Ms. Jimenez, you have 10 minutes. You may call your next witness.
And Your Honor, I'm so sorry, but for the cross-examination for defense, are we going to go with 8 minutes or 5 minutes?
All right. I'm sorry, I'm making this more complicated than it is. You both
It's
seem
okay.
to know what the time is. We will go with for the plaintiff for direct on the next witness. How much time do we have?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, and you don't have a time on that, Mr. Lane, so it'll be 10 minutes, correct? Okay, now for cross-examination, what time do we have for the defense on cross-examining this last witness?
I had 8 minutes and 34 seconds, but Mr. Lane
8:34.
said he had to get the time.
And Mr.
Yes, sir.
Lane, how much time did you say? 5 minutes and some?
5 minutes and 11 seconds, yes.
All right. I'm going to split the difference at 6.5 minutes on cross.
Thank you, Your Honor.
A little less, a little more for each side. So it'll be 6.5 minutes on cross, 10 for the plaintiff. Ms. Jimenez, you may begin or you may call your witness, actually. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry about that.
Plaintiff calls Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
And do we have Dr. Rogers for the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm also Dr. Rogers.
Oh, yes, you are. Sorry. All right. Ms. Jimenez, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Dr. Rogers. Would you state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Dr. Casey Rogers, spelled Rogers.
How are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed as a professor in horticulture and entomology at the University of California, Berkeley.
What sort of education did you obtain to become a professor of horticulture and entomology?
I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology at the University of California at Berkeley. I also have a bachelor's in science in agriculture and chemistry from Colorado State University.
Have you, in your line of work, been published?
I've published numerous scholarly articles on the negative and harmful effects of prolonged exposure to various chemicals, including Drufo.
I want to shift gears and talk about your experience in more detail. What does your work entail?
For many years, I've been studying the potentially harmful effects of prolonged exposure to chemicals has on the body.
How, if at all, has your research been used?
Not only has my research been used in litigation and before administrative advisory boards, I've made recommendations to companies and regulatory agencies on precautions that should be taken by laborers who are exposed to chemicals.
What experience do you have as an expert witness?
This is my first time being an expert witness, but my research has been used in previous litigation.
How do you feel about that?
I'm excited to be a witness for the first time.
Your Honor, plaintiff moves to tender Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert in chemistry, entomology, agriculture, and horticulture.
Ooh, yeah, give me just a moment here. Chemistry,
Entomology,
entomology,
agriculture,
and
horticulture.
all right. I have, let me see here. Mr. Delgado, any objection to Dr. Rogers in any or all of those areas?
Your Honor, I object to Dr. Casey Rogers being admitted as an expert in chemistry. Currently, he has demonstrated he only has degrees and experience in entomology and horticulture. He does not have any expertise in the realm of chemistry.
In chemistry, what about agriculture? You said entomology and horticulture. What about agriculture?
Yeah, then I also object to agriculture as he is not an expert in that field either. As I stated before, his expertise is in the realm of entomology and horticulture, not agriculture or chemistry.
And Ms. Jimenez, what about, so there's no objection on horticulture or entomology. What about chemistry and agriculture as far as your expertise?
Well,
if you need to inquire further of your expert, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll just argue it. If you need to ask him more questions, just do so.
I wouldn't know what to ask.
Okay, are you withdrawing him as an expert as to chemistry and agriculture then? Or do you feel that he is qualified in those areas?
I think he's qualified because his degrees make him knowledgeable in those areas.
On what is the knowledge you are relying on as far as chemistry?
He has a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry and agriculture.
And in agriculture?
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Delgado, Ms. Jimenez indicates to me that that he is qualified in chemistry and agriculture by education. Do you challenge that? Would you like to voir dire this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I will qualify him then in the areas of based on education in chemistry and agriculture and by training and experience in entomology and horticulture. So he is qualified in all four areas, either by education, training, or experience. Ms. Jimenez, you may continue to examine your witness.
Now that we've established your background and experience, let's talk about why you're here. You mentioned you researched Drufo. Tell the jury about your research.
Drufo first caught my attention when it came onto the market. I put together a study in which a control group who had never been exposed to Drufo, a group who had used the products containing Drufo on occasion, and a group who were exposed to Drufo on a regular basis were all monitored over a period of years for various health effects.
What findings did you reach as a result of your research?
The study found an increase in serious health conditions and diagnoses in those who were exposed to Drufo compared to the control group.
What does that mean in layman terms?
People who have been exposed to Drufo compared to those who have not been exposed to Drufo are more likely to develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
What are the details from your results?
Specifically, the study found that those with prolonged experience were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as those without exposure, and 5 times more likely to be diagnosed than compared to those with limited exposure. These results suggest that there is a correlation between exposure to Drufo and cancer. The majority of those diagnosed with cancer were diagnosed with endocrine and exocrine-based varieties, the latter of which includes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
What do you know about non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a specific type of cancer which affects the white blood cells. The lymph system is part of the immune system. The immune system helps the body fight off infection and other diseases, and helps move fluid around the body. Lymphoma can start in any area of the body containing lymph tissue, which can include lymph nodes, the spleen, bone marrow, thymus, adenoids, tonsils, and the digestive tract. Lymphoma can then spread throughout the rest of the body.
How severe is non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Some lymphoma is indolent, meaning they can grow and spread slowly, where others are more aggressive and spread faster. Overall, the 5-year survival rate for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is 72%. There are 4 stages of lymphoma, 1 being the least severe and 4 being the most severe. Like many cancers, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma can be controlled, but it can never be fully cured. Depending on the stage and progression of the lymphoma, it can be treated with chemotherapy, monoclonal antibodies, radiotherapy, stem cell transplant, or surgery. Since non-Hodgkin's lymphoma affects the immune system, those with lymphoma can also become immunocompromised.
I'm seeing, just because we don't have a score coming up or a time coming up here, about 5.5 minutes remaining in the 10 minutes for direct. You may proceed.
What symptoms can non-Hodgkin cause?
Symptoms of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma can include night sweats, fever, weight loss, tiredness, loss of appetite, anemia, and an itch all over the body.
Based on those results, do you believe Drufo was responsible for Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
I believe there is a high degree of medical probability that Weir's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was caused by prolonged experience to Drufo.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, and I'm seeing give me a moment here before we have cross-exam. I'm keeping best time that I can here. I've got about 4.5 minutes left.
I have the same, Your Honor.
Okay. And we'll now have Mr. Delgado cross-examination.
Dr. Rogers, previously you stated that you conducted a study on Drufo, correct?
Correct.
And in this study, you said you compared people who never used Drufo, gardeners, and farmers?
Yes, we monitored them over a long period of time for health conditions.
And you said from the study, you found a correlation between Drufo and cancer. However, correlation does not mean, is different from causation, correct?
Correct. It would be unethical to test for causation in this context.
So correlation does not prove causation, correct?
No.
So your study cannot prove a causal link between Drufo and cancer, correct?
No, it only proves correlation.
Moving on, Dr. Rogers, you want to be at the forefront of this litigation, correct?
Correct.
And you're hoping that it'll turn into a class action lawsuit, correct?
I'm hoping that more people will find justice.
And you're getting paid to testify as an expert witness, correct?
Correct.
So each time, if this goes into a class action lawsuit, each time you testify in court, you will get paid. Is that correct?
Possibly.
Moving on. Dr. Rogers, you started conducting another study on personal protection equipment. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in the study, you were trying to find if using personal protection equipment would decrease the correlation between Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Is that correct?
Yes.
However, your results were inconclusive, correct?
Yes.
And you stopped doing this investigation, correct?
Yes.
So the study that would have proved that Lush needed to put a warning label on their fertilizer, you stopped it, correct?
I don't believe that that study would have proved Lush is required to disclose that Drufo is a carcinogen.
To clarify, you did the study to see if people should use protection equipment to protect themselves against Drufo. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you never got any conclusive results from this, correct?
Yes.
So you have no proof. You have no proof that people should use personal protection equipment against Drufo, correct?
Correct. Besides the warning provided on Lush fertilizer.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. And we will have redirect here. There's 4.5 minutes left for redirect in just a moment. Ms. Jimenez.
I do not wish to read it.
That makes it simpler. Because there is no redirect, there'll be no recross. And Dr. Rogers, your testimony is concluded. Thank you very much. That concludes, or I should ask Mr. Samford, as lead counsel, do you have any more witnesses?
No, we do not, Your Honor.
And is the plaintiff resting her case?
Your Honor, do we give our closing statement now or at the end?
Not yet, not till the
Not yet,
defense
then
puts
yes,
their
you
case
rest.
on. All right. And we will have the first witness for the defendant in just a moment. And Mr. Delgado, which attorney is presenting your first witness?
I believe Mr. Jones will be directing Devin Williams first.
Okay. And Mr. Jones, are you ready with your witness? There we are. And are you ready with your witness, Mr. Jones?
Permission to call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand?
Yes, you may. And Mr. Sanford will be doing cross-examination. Dr. Williams, you have been sworn as a witness, and Mr. Jones, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the jury?
My name is Dr. Devin Williams, Williams.
Dr. Williams, what's your educational background?
I got my undergrad through PhD at CSU in toxicology.
Do you have any professional experience?
Yes. I am also a professor in toxicology. Oh, sorry. I am also the lead scientist at Lush Fertilizer and on the board of ethics.
And Dr. Williams, if you'd scoot forward just a little bit.
That's about as close as I can get.
That's perfect. And hear you much better now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I'm going to repeat that last question because your audio was cutting out just a little bit. What's your professional experience?
I work at Lush and in the toxicology department as one of the lead scientists. And I am also on the board of ethics.
And have you made any publications?
Yes, I have a few in the past.
In what fields?
In toxicology and also agriculture, I believe.
And on any particular topics?
Yes, primarily on the Jufo compound, as I was one of the lead scientists that was helping, I was helping create the Jufo compound.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to admit Dr. Williams is an expert in the field of toxicology, as he has proved that he has the requisite education as a doctorate in the field, as he holds a doctorate in the field, as well as knowledge and skills, as he has conducted numerous publications and has worked in the field for that amount of time as well.
Mr. Sanford, any objection to qualifying the witness in toxicology?
There are no objections.
Then Dr. Williams, you are qualified as an expert in toxicology, may render opinions. Mr. Jones, you may proceed.
Dr. Williams, do you have any prior experience testifying in a court of law?
No, I do not.
Why did you choose to testify today?
I felt the need to defend the Lush company and the Jufo compound.
And are you aware of any concerns about that compound?
Yes. As I was one of the lead scientists, I oversaw some of the studies we did, and I have reviewed other studies primarily made by Casey Rogers on the Jufo compound.
And did you have a chance to review any documents prior to coming into court today?
Yes, I did. primarily Casey Rogers' study and of course some of the evidence.
And what were your thoughts about that study?
I found that the study was largely inaccurate as the way that he conducted the study was just not a very good comparison of the control groups and other groups he used.
Why would you say that?
Because, well, in a sense, it's like comparing apples to oranges with the different lifestyles and environments that all of the people in the study have. There can be a ton of different factors that could have led to them getting cancer besides Drufo.
Could you explain to us a little bit more about those different lifestyles between the control groups?
Yes, the different lifestyles include that of some people may live in the suburbs, go to a 9-to-5 job and stuff, while others may work on a farm and be just experiencing a ton of different pesticides and chemicals that could lead to them developing cancer. He didn't really bother to eliminate most of the factors.
And what do you think that says about his study?
That for a large part it is inaccurate and should not be, well, taken seriously.
And as an expert in this field, would you say that those results were reliable at all?
No, I would say that they were not reliable whatsoever.
So do you think that we can trust the results of those studies?
No, we cannot trust them.
Dr. Williams, do you plan on testifying in a court of law in the future?
Yes, primarily to reinstate Drufo back in the UK.
Why is it not in the UK already?
Due to the fact that it does somewhat contain nitrogen, it is banned. However, we have taken precautions to avoid any harmful damage that the nitrogen could cause.
Why does the UK ban products containing nitrogen?
Well, since we were a new company at the time and they wanted to ban the nitrogen completely, and seeing as how our fertilizer does contain some, they do have a ban on it. And we have, depending on the outcome of this case, we do plan on trying to reinstate it.
Why do you believe that they should reinstate it?
Because the precautions we have taken to ensure that the nitrogen won't harm anyone or the environment should be looked at more carefully this time.
And do you believe that they will be?
Yes, I do.
And do you believe that there's a good chance for Drufo to get reinstated?
Yes, there's a very likely chance of it getting reinstated.
And a final question for you. In addition to Dr. Casey Rogers' study, have you seen absolutely anything else that could conclusively prove that Drufo is carcinogenic?
No, none whatsoever.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. We'll have cross-exam in just a moment. And Mr. Samford, you may cross-examine Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, Mr. Williams. You are currently employed by the Lush Fertilizer Corporation.
Yes, that is correct.
And you've been employed there since 2010?
I'm sorry, I can't.
And you've been employed there since 2010?
Yes.
And you've been working on Drufo since you joined the company?
Yes, I was primarily on that team.
And you're a technician on the Drufo development team?
Yes, and now I'm the lead toxicologist and on the board of ethics.
And you oversee the environmental impacts of Drufo?
Yes, I find that it's our responsibility to make sure that the fertilizer is as safe as possible for the environment and for everyone.
And you chaired the company ethics committee?
Yes.
And the CEO, Blake Doncourt, needed you to keep Drufo an industry-leading product?
Yes, he wanted me to keep it safe and functional.
And the CEO needed you to keep it cost effective, is that right?
Yes, of course, that's that's an aspect with any product.
Let's talk about the significance of Drufo to the company. Agricultural production has increased in some areas by 800% between 1960 and 2000, is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
And that growth is due to fertilizers.
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
Yes. And Lush Fertilizer serves the agricultural market?
Yes, it does.
And Drufo is central to the success of Lush?
Yes, it does, as it's a compound we use in most of our products.
And you view Drufo as a revolutionary product, is that right?
Yes, with the way that we help it, that we contain its negative effects on the environment, we do find it revolutionary.
And you view it as a product that works more effectively than the fertilizer of your competitors?
Yes, we believe so.
And Drufo is what makes it more effective, is that right?
Yes, and what also can help it, and it is also what helps it be most safe for the environment.
And the sale of Drufo products benefits Lush, right?
Yes, as with any other product.
And the sale of Drufo benefits your stockholders?
Yes.
According to you, the Lush Fertilizer Corporation prides itself as environmentalism. Is that right?
Yes, our CEO and several of our other members do have a strong stance on helping the environment.
And Drufo is banned, is that right?
Yes.
Where is it banned?
In the UK, France, and some other countries due to the fact that it does somewhat contain nitrogens.
But Lush still sells products to that market, right?
Yes, however, we have made the exception of not including the Drufo in those products.
And because they do not contain Drufo, they do not help stop eutrophication like Drufo does.
That is true.
And you continue to sell these products to the EU anyways?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question properly.
But you continue to sell these products to the EU anyways, is that right?
That is right.
Because it was just easier to manufacture a line of products without Drufo.
Well, I'm not on the marketing team or that team, or well, the sales team. I believe we have done what we could for the products that don't contain Drufo to make them as safe as possible, just like what other companies do that don't have Drufo.
But because they do not have Drufo, they do result in worse environmental impacts.
Yes, however, we try our best to contain them as much as possible.
But you do sell Drufo products to the United States, is that right?
Yes, we want to do what we can to help the environment.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Sorry, what did you say? All right. An internal study at the Lush Fertilizer Company revealed that baking Drufo would eliminate all risk of carcinogenic qualities. Is that correct?
We believe so. However, due to the fact that there hasn't been any conclusive results that show that Drufo would need it, as there's been no harmful effects to it, we haven't done so.
Because not baking Drufo would lead to a 6% profit increase.
I believe that, and the fact that there's no need to take precautions there was no need to prevent something that's not there.
And these extra profits means more money for your company. Is that right?
Yes, in a sense.
And you're working to have Drufo unbanned in the EU, is that correct?
Yes.
And if the EU ceased to ban Drufo, would it result in increased sales for Lush?
Yes, and our product will be safer for the environment in the EU and several other places.
And if the EU ceased to ban Drufo, would other products be likely to do the same? Other markets, I'm sorry. Would other markets be likely to unban it as well?
They probably will be.
And would that result in even more sales?
Yeah, yes, and also, as I stated, it would also help the environment in those places.
But if you lose this lawsuit, it would create a whole host of bureaucratic roadblocks to the EU.
Yes,
Roadblocks that
and
prevent you from selling Drufo in that market.
yes, and it would also severely hurt the environment.
And is it fair to say that losing this lawsuit would impact your sales in the United States?
They somewhat will, yes.
And as we have discussed, you have been on the Drufo team at Lush since 2010. You're the head of labs and you were the head of the ethics committee.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that losing this lawsuit would impact you personally?
Not as much as we could probably take a different course of action afterwards to either revise the Drufo compound or create a substitute for it.
But you agree that a product that you helped develop being found to cause cancer would impact you?
Yes, however, not as much as other people.
There are no further questions, Your Honor.
We'll have redirect in just a moment. Mr. Jones.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Just one moment. Just catching up on paperwork here. Yes, you may proceed with your redirect examination of Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, what's the primary goal of Lush Fertilizer?
To create a fertilizer that is not only extremely efficient, but also very helpful for the environment.
And sorry, I apologize. And in the products that you're currently selling in the EU, would you still say that they are beneficial to the environment?
Yes, we have done what we can to make them as beneficial as possible.
And why were you unable to contest the EU regulations as a new company?
At the time, we were a very small company and didn't have the resources and capability to fight them on it. However, depending on the outcome of this case, we do plan on fighting them for it.
Why do you believe that you should contest those regulations?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Why do you believe that you should contest those EU regulations?
So that we can have Drufo back and have Drufo in that company. I mean, in those states and in those countries, and also so that the environment would be a lot better.
And aside from the environmental benefits of Drufo, do you believe that it's safe for people to use?
Yes, I do in fact believe that it is completely safe to use.
And have you seen any research to prove otherwise?
I have not seen any conclusive research that proves that Drufo is harmful whatsoever.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And we'll pause a moment before redirect. I'm sorry. Recross, sorry. Mr. Sanford, do you have recross examination for Dr. Williams?
Just the one. Dr. Williams, you stated that depending on the outcome of this case, you would be focusing on challenging the EU decision to ban Drufo. Does that mean that if this case was not found in your favor, you would not be able to have it unbanned in the EU?
That is true. We wouldn't be able to.
No further questions.
And Mr. Jones, on that issue, I'm sorry, that was recross. I'm sorry, I got lost in my sheet here. That concludes the testimony then of Dr. Williams. Thank you very much, sir. And which attorney is presenting the next witness for the defense? Mr. Knox?
You can't see us now.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and your witness is going to be Skylar Weirs, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And we will have Ms. Jimenez, you are going to be doing cross-examination on Skylar Weirs, is that correct? Ms. Jimenez, do we have you?
Your Honor, she's in the bathroom right now.
Oh, okay. We'll wait just a second then until we call this witness.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm ready.
That's all right. And Ms. Jimenez will be doing our cross-examination. Mr. Knox, you may call your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I call Skylar Weirs to stand.
And Ms. Weirs, you have already been sworn. Mr. Knox, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Skylar Weirs, W-I-E-R-S.
Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Weirs. And what do you do for a living?
I am an investigative journalist, mostly freelance, at a quarterly newspaper, The Rationalist.
And how long have you been doing that?
Almost a year now.
And what is your writing process?
Yeah, so I look at multiple publications. Then I track down all their studies and references, and I study that as well. I also look at a multitude number of publications from the United States Department of Agriculture and the NSDA.
And throughout that 1 year of your research, what have you wrote about?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What have you wrote about during your research?
Yeah, so for when my editor picked me out to choose a series about Truffaut.
And how did you become interested in Truffaut and fertilizers?
Yeah, so I first started writing in modern agri-tech, and once I started doing work for The Rationalist, it was something that my editor had picked out for me. So that's naturally what I researched, even before Dakota got diagnosed.
And has anything stood out during your research, Ms. Weirs?
Yes, a lot has stood out, but mostly the fact that Truffaut is not only safe, is a safer option for the environment, but also for humans, people.
Your Honor, I offer Skylar Weirs as an expert in modern agriculture and research relating to the components of fertilizer.
All right, so agriculture, and the second area you said was, I'm sorry?
In modern agriculture and research relating to the components of fertilizer.
So directly as to the DRUFO component of the fertilizer. Okay, and Ms. Jimenez, any objection to qualifying that witness in those areas? And Ms. Jimenez, you need to turn your microphone on.
No objections. Sorry.
All right, I will qualify then Skylar Weirs as an expert in agriculture and as regarding her direct research into the chemical DRUFO in this agriculture into the product. Mr. Knox, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And overall, Ms. Weirs, what did you conclude in your research?
Yes, as I mentioned, DRUFO, blush fertilizer in general is the safer option as it contains less carcinogens, and it's also very environmentally friendly.
And how does blush fertilizer compare to other fertilizer companies?
Yes, so during all my research, I have found that DRUFO is a very strong bonding agent and therefore contains less carcinogenic bonding agents such as glyphosate and arsenic, which other companies still have. So it makes it the safer option for humans, and not only for humans, but also the environment. It has less runoff and it's just a better option overall.
So DRUFO falls as a safer option, Ms. Weirs?
Yes, it is much safer.
And while working with blush fertilizer, what can be done to ensure safety, Ms. Weirs?
Yes, so no fertilizer product is ever going to be truly safe. So that's why it's the responsibility of the user to always wear protective gear and to protect themselves.
And Ms. Weirs, why are you exactly doing this, being the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs' twin?
Yes, well, I believe that it wasn't DRUFO that had caused her cancer. I think she deserves justice, she does, but she won't get it out of claiming that Lush is doing this to her. I believe that she worked in fertilizer and she worked with multiple products, so we can't say that it was Lush who did it. I believe it was another product.
So, Ms. Weirs, you're not doing this out of spite?
No, I love my sister.
So you're not saying Lush fertilizer hurt Dakota Weirs?
Lush fertilizer did not hurt Dakota at all. I believe it was another company and the negligence of Haven Landscaping for not requiring her to wear protective gear.
So you're not saying this to hurt Dakota Weirs?
No, as I said, I love Dakota dearly. She's my family. I would never want to do anything to undermine her. I want justice for her.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Jimenez, we'll have cross-examination in just a moment. And Ms. Jimenez, you may have your cross-examination of Skylar Weirs now. You may proceed.
Ms. Weirs, let's talk about your qualifications to testify as an expert witness. You write for a magazine called The Rationalist, correct?
Yes, it's a nonprofit organization.
This is a publication dedicated to promoting scientific skepticism.
Yes, we like our readers to question what's being told to them, as anybody should with any type of news source, news articles, anything. It's important to question.
In other words, you work for a publication dedicated to calling into question scientific findings?
Yes, questions are important so we could get the full perspective and not just take everything for face value.
All right, and unlike Dr. Rogers, you do not hold a PhD.
I don't need college for what I do. What I do is research. I look at historical and statistical facts. I don't need any degree to do that at all.
And you do not research environmental chemistry or agriculture? I mean, you don't even have a bachelor in agriculture and chemistry?
No, as I just said, I don't need college. I don't need a degree to do what I do. All I need to do is research and look at facts.
Your entire basis of knowledge on this topic is your research into Drufo for The Rationalist.
Yes, but I look at multiple publications. I look at multiple references. I look at everything.
All right. And you define pesticides and herbicides as poison?
Yes, for undesirable organisms such as fungi and bacteria, even insects.
And you know that Lush fertilizer has nitrogen in it?
Yes, it does, but since it needs to be applied much less often and in a much less quantity, it doesn't really have a risk to it.
But you agree that nitrogen is known to cause various types of cancer?
Yes, as I said, there's no fertilizer option that's going to be 100% safe. And Drufo Lush's fertilizer is much more safe as it contains much less carcinogens. It doesn't have glyphosate or arsenic like other companies do.
All right. We established that you write articles for The Rationalist. Your writing is what generates your income?
Yes.
Up to now, writing has not been very lucrative for you.
Not much, but it's one of my passions. I don't do writing for money. If I wanted money, I would not be doing what I do right now.
And you currently work as a part-time, you currently work part-time at Applebee's to supplement your income?
Yes, I do, because as I mentioned, I write as a passion. It's my passion. I could be paid much more writing, but I want to do what I love. And what I love is writing about modern agri-tech and questioning all those sciences.
All right. And you do admit that you are a bit of a gambler.
Yes, I am.
For several years, you made money gambling?
I did, yes.
However, a few years back, you lost money and have not been able to climb back.
I have not, but as I said, I could easily make a lot of money from my writing, but I turned down a lot of job offers because I challenge all the big players in the agri-tech writing.
All right. Well, I have no further questions.
We will have redirect in just a moment. Mr. Knox. And Mr. Knox, you may redirect Skylar, your witness, Skylar Weirs.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, what is your motive being on the defense against your twin, Dakota Weirs?
My motive is that my sister Dakota, she's accusing the wrong company of doing this, and Lush Fertilizer is doing so much good for the environment that it would be a crime to take Lush out of the game when they are doing so much for the environment.
And throughout throughout your 1 year of research, you found no evidence showing that Drufo is harmful.
Yes, there has been no conclusive evidence that has said that Drufo is carcinogenic, while other fertilizer companies have known carcinogens in their fertilizers. And that's why I believe that it wasn't Lush who poisoned my sister, but it was another fertilizer company.
No further questions, Your Honor.
And Ms. Jimenez, any recross?
I do not wish to.
I'm sorry, you said that you did not have any recross?
Yeah, I don't.
Thank you. And Ms. Weirs, that concludes your testimony. Thank you very much. I will have the final witness for the defense. Mr. Delgado will be examining Blake Doncourt in just a moment. If you would come on the screen, please, we'll get ready. And Mr. Malone will be doing the cross exam. And we have everyone but our witness. There we go. And it looks as though everyone's ready. Ms. Doncourt, you have been sworn as a witness. Mr. Delgado, you may proceed.
Ms. Doncourt, could you please state your name and spell out your last name for the record?
Of course, my name is Blake Doncourt. My last name is spelled Doncourt.
And could you explain to us what you do for a living?
Yeah, of course. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated. So I basically built the company from the ground up.
And what makes your fertilizers so great compared to other companies?
Well, it's different because our fertilizer I created so that it's safer for the environment. We use a product called Drufo, and it's basically a safer fertilizer that you basically only have to spray 2 or 3 times a year. So it doesn't spray as many harmful chemicals into the earth, therefore preserving the environment.
And why are you willing to invest so much resources and time into developing this product?
Because myself, I am a huge environmentalist. I even got nominated in 2020 for a award. Sorry, I got nominated for an award, and I basically built my company so that it's a company that creates fertilizer that is safer, better for the environment, and creates lush green grass.
And Ms. Doncourt, have you bore witness to all the testimony that took place today?
Yes, I was able to listen.
Let's move on to Carson Durst. How do you know Carson Durst?
Carson used to work for our company. He was also close to our family.
And why was he fired from your company?
Carson basically just didn't show the right work ethic. She didn't have she was reported many times basically.
And as you heard previously today, Carson Durst said that there was concerns over Drufo being carcinogenic. Did you ever hear about any of these concerns?
No, I did not. And I was surprised when I wasn't, because if Carson did have any concerns, he could have brought them up to me personally. it was weird that he had these concerns before and never brought them up to me since we were so close. And considering, you know, he is an employee, I'm the CEO, that's just how it's supposed to happen. If there were any concerns, he should have made sure I was aware, and I would have done something about it.
And have you ever heard concerns from Devin Williams, Dr. Williams?
No, I did not. Again, if if there were any valid research, anything that would have suggested my product was dangerous, I would not have released it. But I didn't find anything. There was nothing conclusive or anything that was valid, really.
And Ms. Doncourt, how long has your company been doing research on this new compound?
We researched it for many years, around 4, I think, before we released it.
And moving on, Ms. Doncourt, previously we heard today that you don't bake your product. Why is this?
We don't bake our products because, considering the risks that there is, which is little to none, there is no reason to bake it for the amount of, I know it sounds bad, but for the amount of money, but that's just how any company runs. If there is little risk, why would I risk so much money?
And when trying to make this decision of whether to bake your product or not, did you ever create any documents or reports on it?
So we created a 10-year amortization report in 2004, basically about the profits for the versus baking versus not baking.
And do you create these reports for any decisions or products you create in Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, as with any company, I am supposed to, or any business, I'm supposed to make a profit report. It's just procedure for any company, really.
And do all of these reports come to you?
Yes, of course they do.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I am showing the witness, Ms. Doncourt, what is marked, what is an unmarked copy of Exhibit 8.
And Exhibit 8, give me just a moment. 6, 7. Exhibit 8 is a spreadsheet. Yes, I have Exhibit 8. You may proceed.
Ms. Doncourt, do you recognize this report?
Yes, this is the 10-year amortization report we made about baking.
And is this a true and accurate copy of that report?
Yes, I did review this before.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit Exhibit 8 into evidence as a business record.
As Mr. Malone, any objection to Exhibit 8?
I do not object.
Exhibit 8 is in. Mr. Delgado, you may proceed with Exhibit 8 with your witness.
Ms. Doncourt, could you please walk us through this document?
Yeah, of course. So it basically lists out each year from 2004 to 2014 and the profits before baking. I'll just point out the important parts just to make it more simple. The profits before baking is basically the profit each year. So the line next to it from the year is what the profit from that year would be before baking. And then I'm going to take you guys 2 lines over. That's baking costs. So that's how much it would cost every year to bake. And as you see, there is a cost increase as the years go on. The net profit, that's the 2 rows after that, that is our net profit after baking. So that is the net profit if you subtract the baking costs. And then I'm going to take you guys to the last, which is the estimated overall revenue loss. So that shows the cumulative profit, the cumulative loss that we will make from each year. And you can see at the end of 2 years from 2004, we'll be losing around 2.6 million. When you compare it to the profit before baking, that is around 1.9 if you add them all up. And then, so that means the net profit after baking will be about 16.5 million.
And how does this estimated loss compare to the amount of money you give to charity?
The amount I give to charity is about 10%. That's to environmental charities because I care about the environment so much. But the revenue loss, if you compare it to the 19 million, it is about 13%. So that is close to 10%.
And did you ever have any reason to bake your products?
No, I did not. There was little to no risk and it would be overkill to bake it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Malone, we will have cross-examination in just a moment. And Mr. Malone, you may cross-examine Ms. Doncourt.
Thank you. Ms. Doncourt, let's discuss how the outcome of this case will impact you and Lush Fertilizer. You understand that Lush Fertilizer is being sued in this case for negligently failing to exercise reasonable care to prevent Drufo from causing unreasonable risk of harm?
I do understand we're being sued, but like I said, I believe there should be no reason to sue us. First of all, there was no danger to our product.
But you are aware that the basis of this claim is that Drufo caused non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yes, I am aware of the claim, but like I said, I found no valid research that our product was carcinogenic.
And you are also being sued for failing to warn users of Drufo and the risk of harm or injury?
Yes, if this is about the label, they did bring that up, but our research team nor the EPA did not find any reason to put a warning label on it, but we did still have our recommendations, which we do expect our customers to follow.
But these claims are also based on the claim that Drufo causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, correct?
Yes, the claim.
Ms. Doncourt, it would be bad for your business if Drufo was found to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, correct?
As with any business, even when I entered this litigation, it still causes any harm to me. And I would do anything to make sure that this would not happen. If anybody like Carson or anybody else had a valid research or any brought their concerns to me, I would not have released my product and I wouldn't be in this mess.
But you are the chief executive officer of Lush Fertilizer.
Yes, I am. I built our company.
And you are incredibly proud of your company's success.
Yes, I am.
You did note that it took a lot of work to build Lush Fertilizer into a successful company. Is that correct?
It did take a lot of my time and my effort and a lot of work, yes.
So for you individually, it would also be bad if Drufo was found to cause non-Hodgkin's.
Yes, but if you think about it, why would if I knew that Drufo caused non-Hodgkin's and I still released the product, why would I, as a businesswoman, release the product? That just makes no sense. I would never put my company in danger if I knew the risks.
So, Ms. Doncourt, let's discuss what Lush Fertilizer knew about the dangers of Drufo. You did hear Carson Durst's testimony, correct?
I did, yes.
And you are aware of the study from England that showed a chemical component in Drufo might cause cancer?
I did hear about it in his testimony, but I didn't hear any valid research before.
And you are aware that one of Lush Fertilizer's scientists raised a concern that Drufo might cause non-Hodgkin's? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You are aware that one of Lush Fertilizer's scientists raised a concern that Drufo might cause non-Hodgkin's?
Yeah, I'm aware in this litigation, that's all I heard today. Before, I did not have any concerns that were valid, any research that was valid, that was brought to me personally, none of that.
And you are aware that your own internal study concluded that additional research was required to determine whether Drufo had an adverse effect on humans.
We did our research before we released the product for many years. It was extensive research. And as with any product, we continuously research. I'm sorry, I might be getting a little confused, but there was basically no research that was brought to me about the concerns.
You are aware that your own internal study found that baking drufa would eliminate the risk of cancer, if any.
If any, yes, but the risk that we found in our own research was little to none. And as I said before, it would be simply overkill to pay that much for this little risk.
So you do admit that Lush Fertilizer does not bake any of its products?
Yes, I do admit that we went over that before.
And you do admit that by not baking Drufo, it does raise the annual profits?
Yes, it does. But again, as a CEO, as any company does, if that profit, when you compare it to, like, I don't mind 10%, but when you compare it to the little risk that there was, why would any company risk that? Lose that money? Why would anyone do that?
But in your report, you also stated that you need those profits to pay investors in your company in line 108.
Yes, that is true. That is also why we make these reports. And that is also why we have to consider the profits before, because I do admit we have a lot of people to pay and it is costly. And that is another reason why we need to save this money. It is not for my personal gain. If anything, it's because when you compare it to the facts, the research that we've done about Drufo, about any carcinogen in our product, there is no risk at all, or little to no risk.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. And we'll have redirect Mr. Delgado of your witness, Ms. Doncourt. You may proceed.
Ms. Doncourt, you are any and all research results does every research conclusion and result come to you?
Yes, they do. They are supposed to report back to me as I am the CEO.
And have you ever seen any possible dangers within your product from these results?
No, nothing, sorry. We did extensive research and we found little to no risk in the product.
And if you ever found any risk within your product, what could have you done to simply fix that? Or what have you done if you, let me rephrase the question. If you ever found any risk within your product, what could you have done as the CEO of the company?
Time is up for redirect.
Time is up on redirect. And based on what we have, Mr. Malone, do you have any recross?
I do not.
And I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I'm the timekeeper for defense, and I still had a minute left for recross.
How much time?
Specifically 54 seconds, as I was pausing for objections.
Fair enough, Mr. Delgado. I'll let you ask that question, that single question, and have Ms. Doncourt answer. And the question, yeah, you may proceed with that question about the hypothetical about what she could have done if she found anything.
Ms. Doncourt, if you ever saw any risk within your product, what could you have done as CEO of the company?
I simply would not have released the product, or I would have done more research to try and fix it to eliminate any risk. I would not risk my profitable company of almost $20 million for just 2.6.
And Mr. Malone, any recross on that question?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Doncourt, thank you very much. Your testimony is concluded. We're now going to proceed directly into closing arguments. That is the last witness for the defense, and we're a little behind time, so I'm going to ask us to move directly into closing. And for the plaintiff, that will be Mr. Malone. Mr. Malone, your closing argument.
Lush Fertilizer put profits over people's lives. We are here today because Lush Fertilizer put profits above people, and the consequences of its actions have been enormous. The damages caused by Lush's negligence cannot be ignored. Dakota Weirs loved to play the piano. From a young age, she would play with her grandfather, sitting together in front of the piano, which were some of her fondest memories. When Dakota's grandfather died when she was 7, the piano made her feel like maybe somewhere he was still with her. Piano was the focal point of Dakota's life, but it was not the only part. Dakota was also involved in her community and loved to help others. Dakota was the president of student council or student government and volunteered at a homeless shelter. All of that changed when Dakota became ill. Dakota started to experience rapid weight loss. In addition, Dakota had chest pains, chills, and her abdomen was swollen to more than double its normal size. Dakota was scared. She had no idea what was going on. Even the doctors could not figure out what was wrong with Dakota at first. Here was this young woman, her whole future ahead of her, and yet an unknown illness holding her back. One day, Dakota learned from watching the news that Drufo, a chemical that she worked with as a landscape technician, was linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. All of a sudden, it all made sense. This is what caused her illness. Drufo is what was holding her back from her future. We are here today because Lush Fertilizer negligently created a substance, Drufo, that it knew posed an unreasonable risk of causing harm. Even worse, Lush Fertilizer knew the risk Drufo posed and failed to warn users like Dakota Weirs of the harm it would cause. We are here because Lush Fertilizer put profits over people. We have met our burden by providing a preponderance of evidence that Lush Fertilizer was negligent. As a result, we are seeking $1.3 million in damages. I want to review the evidence that shows that we met our burden. First, you heard from Dakota Weirs, the named plaintiff in this case. Ms. Weirs told you about her experience using Drufo as a landscape technician starting at the age of 14. Ms. Weirs used this product for several years. Importantly, you also learned that Lush Fertilizer never labeled potential risks of their product. While this true, Ms. Weirs did not wear protective equipment. As a 14-year-old girl, she had no idea what the implications would be of such decisions. She did not know that she would develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Next, you heard from Carson Durst, a former employee of Lush Fertilizer. Ms. Durst explained to you that while she worked for Lush Fertilizer, discovered a study that found a chemical compound in Drufo was linked to non-Hodgkin's in rats. Ms. Durst reported this information as her job required. What was Lush Fertilizer's response? They ignored her. Not only that, a scientist that worked for Lush Fertilizer had shared the concern that Lush Fertilizer caused cancer. What was Lush Fertilizer's response? They ignored the scientist. At every opportunity, Lush Fertilizer ignored the information that Drufo was dangerous. Finally, you heard from Dr. Rogers. Dr. Rogers, a professor of horticulture and entomology at the University of California at Berkeley, conducted a study to determine the impact of exposure to Drufo. He found that those exposed to Drufo were significantly more likely to develop cancer, more specifically, more likely to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Lush Fertilizer put profits over people. We ask that you hold them accountable and award Ms. Weirs $1.3 million in damages. Thank you.
And any remaining time will be reserved for rebuttal, if any. Mr. Delgado, closing argument for the defendant.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today the plaintiff would like you to believe that this is my client, Lush Fertilizer, put profits over people. However, today we showed you that this is actually about research and results. Today, the plaintiff had the burden of proof to prove 3 things to you today. 1, that Ms. Dakota Weirs was damaged. 2, that Drufo causes cancer. And 3, that my client, Lush Fertilizer, knew about it. Today, we are not disputing that Miss Dakota Weirs has non-Hodgkin lymphoma. She is harmed. However, today, the plaintiff has not proven a causal link between Drufo and cancer and has not proven that my client, Lush Fertilizer, knew about any risks. Today, you heard, first let's talk about causation. Today, you heard from the plaintiff's expert themselves, Dr. Casey Rogers, that his study came up with a correlation between Drufo and cancer. You heard from him today that correlation does not mean causation. You heard from him today that he has no way to use this study to prove that Drufo caused cancer. Today, you heard from Dr. Casey Rogers. He made an assumption based on his study. An assumption is not hard proof. An assumption is not evidence. An assumption cannot prove a causal link. Furthermore, today you heard from Ms. Weirs that her own boss told her to use personal protection equipment. And did she? No. She herself, as I'm sorry to say, was negligent in her job. Furthermore, let's talk about Carson Durst. He waited 15 years to bring his concerns up. 15 years, and he claims to be concerned. When does he bring this up? He brings up his concerns 15 years after he was fired from Lush Fertilizer. In those 15 years, he is now working for a competitor, and he stands to gain from my client, Lush Fertilizer, losing this litigation. Today, you heard from my client's expert, Devin Williams, that in his 4 years of research, he has never seen any correlation between Drufo and cancer. You heard from Skylar Weirs, who has done extensive research and journalism into every nook and cranny, that there has never been an expressed concern or causal link between Drufo and cancer. You heard from Ms. Domport today that she created this product out of care for the environment and the people that use it. So people that use her products are in less danger than using other fertilizers. Today, you heard about research and results. Today, you heard about years of research showing no correlation or causation between Drufo and cancer. Today, you heard the lack of research from the plaintiff's side to try and prove any correlation between Drufo and cancer. Let's move on to negligence knowledge now. Even if hypothetically my client's product caused cancer, there was never any research to prove so. So my client would not know. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the plaintiff today had to prove 3 things, and they have failed to prove 2 of them. They have failed to prove causation and knowledge. If you find by the preponderance of the evidence any of this is true, you must find for my client. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Malone, do you have any rebuttal as your argument?
No rebuttal, sir.
Thank you very much then. The case is submitted to the jury. The scoring panelists will now be working hard to get their score sheets done. When each of scoring panelists are finished, if you would please activate your video. That way we'll know that your score is submitted, and then I can, our CBA representative will know that, and I will know that. In the meantime, I just need to burn a little time here while they work. So I'd like all of the attorneys and witnesses to come back on the screen if you would. And I'll just have a few comments to you. First of all, I want to applaud you, and I'll just do it visually or here. A very good job. And I would like you as well as witnesses and attorneys, if you would applaud the other team and applaud all the people supporting you that are watching us on YouTube, your coaches and friends and family members and people like that. As soon as we have all of our scoring panelists back on my screen, they can have some brief comments. We want to make these as brief as we can so that you can get off to lunch and get prepared for your next round 3. But it was awfully good. I'll tell you that I'm sure you understand this, but speaking in public, if you add, there have been psychological studies that say that speaking in public is a more fearful experience than fearing death. That's pretty well known, that especially young people don't fear death at all, but speaking in public, almost everyone is terrified to do that. And you know how difficult it is. You've been doing it. You've done very well, but Zoom or virtual trials are even more difficult because you don't have, for the most part, you don't have your teammates around you. You know, we have a few people that have are sharing a screen, but not everybody for sure. It's much more difficult when you don't have your team around you. You have to communicate with them by chat. You can't just lean over and see if there's something that you ought to do that you haven't done, or whatever suggestions your teammates might have. So it's much more difficult. I do believe we have all of our scoring panelists with us now. I'm going to ask first Mr. Sweet if you have any comments for our group.
First overall comment is I think both teams did very well. There's some really interesting evidentiary issues in this case problem that would trip up licensed attorneys any day. So the fact that you guys handled them so gracefully was really impressive. A couple highlights. Mr. Jones, you've got an incredible presence. I think you did a fantastic job. Both your cross and your direct were very strong, and you should keep up that energy in later rounds. Ms. Zhang, I think your work as a witness was fantastic. You seem to know the case problem and the facts very well. So I see good things in future rounds for you as well. Looking towards the other side of the aisle, Mr. Sanford, I think you did an excellent job on your direct. One of the challenging things for attorneys, and we don't get judged on, we can use notes whenever we want, but always keep an eye on notes. This is kind of a general comment for everybody, and staying away from them. We could see eyes moving back and forth reading, but for the most part, you all did very well with that, and I was very impressed. And I thought, again, both teams did a great job, and best of luck in later rounds.
And Mr. West?
Can I interrupt real quick? Jared, did you hit submit on your sheet? I am not seeing it in my email.
No, I was unsure whether I submit it now or later, and it sounds like now.
Now is perfect.
So I just submitted it for you.
I'll tell you what, we'll have Ms. Gonzalez give her comments, and while you submit your
I'm submitted, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Gonzalez?
Okay, so yeah, like to reiterate, you guys did an excellent job. It was easier to notice who was not reading versus who was reading. So just keep that in mind. You do want to be more well prepared. But those of you who prepared, it was very obvious to me, and I noted that in my notes. I wanted to see more exhibits used in the trial. I believe there was only one exhibit that was admitted. And so it would have been nice to have had that, especially for the jurors. I also wanted to see more objections, but for those who did object, you were able to articulate the objections really well using those evidence rules. So great job on that. And then there was one point where there was just an improper impeachment that happened that someone could have objected to, because I can't remember who it was, but someone had tried to basically read from the affidavit without impeaching the witness. So you can always object to improper impeachment there. And then just wanted to highlight Mr. Jones, Ms. Morgan, Mrs. Jung, Mr. Abram, Mr. Lane, Ms. Jimenez, and Ms. Delgado. You guys were really, you all did really well with your public speaking aspect of your performance. And I'll pass it along to the next scoring panelist.
And Mr. West.
Okay, I took a lot of notes, so I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible for everybody. But again, global comments, you all are doing this through COVID, as His Honor mentioned, and that's just, commendable in of itself and all the challenges that you guys have had to overcome. As the juror number 2 just previously stated, this is all about preparation. That really comes through. I always think about the line from Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And invariably, anytime that you're speaking publicly, even if you're a witness, a timekeeper, and especially if you're in a trial, that's a proverbial punch in the face from the start. So preparation is always key. And, most of you guys were really well prepared. Let's see, a few things is just, basic decorum in the court. Anytime that you have a script ready to, or a script that's you use in every sort of hearing, right? Such as no more questions, Your Honor. You want to have those scripts down. So a few times those questions were kind of ad-libbed. You want to have those kind of immediate scripts down. A few things. So Knox, your presence was strong. I feel like sometimes you may have gotten just lost, and I always think about it like hiking, right? You have the top of the mountain, and then you have your immediate steps in front of you, and that's kind of like the same thing as just kind of always keeping track of both what you're doing in the immediate moment and then where you're going. Sanford, I felt like one of those things was with your direct, the judge gave you a softball and trying to goad you into doing the 702 tender, the witness expert tender. And I don't think you kind of got it right away. And then he kind of goaded you again. And then that's when you got it. The judge, he's sitting there in his robe, he's royalty. So anytime that he gives you a softball like that, you really want to pick up on that cue. Jones, I think your decorum was the best as far as yes, Your Honor, no more questions, Your Honor, as well as just your ability to be kind of hard with the other side and then soft with your own witnesses. I really appreciated that. Jimenez, on your direct, I love that you always shifted gears. You always had your signpost like, okay, we're going to talk about this. Okay, now shifting gears, we're going to talk about that. I really love that. And I think Rogers, you and a lot of the other witnesses were very natural, very prepared. My boss always talks about breathing with the facts. And it's so much better for the people doing direct or cross to have a witness that is really well prepared. And otherwise, like I said, I think you all did very, very great. Oh, and there's one more thing too that I'd say kind of globally. I think there's also appreciable difference. Somebody mentioned notes, but I also think there's an appreciable difference between people that were sitting and people that were standing. It's tough to say, but a lot of this is theater. You have to be captivating for the jurors to pay attention to you. So regardless of the truth about what you're talking about, if you're not captivating people's attention, they're not going to hear the information that you're trying to provide. And with the people that were standing, I felt like their presence was a lot more captivating than the people that were sitting. And that's something that I try to employ in my practice as well. Otherwise, I think you all did a really great job. It was an honor and privilege to judge you all today, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you all. And I know you all need to get to lunch. Just on that issue of standing and sitting, I always let attorneys sit if they wished at any time, but it depends on your presence. If you have a good, strong voice and a good presence, whether you're sitting or not, if you're more comfortable sitting, go ahead and sit. If you feel that your presence is not as strong or your voice isn't as strong, when you stand up, you will automatically speak louder, be more demonstrative. So just look at it that way. But don't be concerned about it now. I was very satisfied with everyone. So thank you very much. We'll have all of our participants drop off now, the attorneys and the witnesses, and we'll stay for the scoring panelists and the timekeepers will drop off. We'll stay with Amy, our panelists, and me for just a moment, if we could. So everyone else, thank you very much. Hope I see you in another round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You guys did awesome. Thank you so much. Bye.
All right, and Amy, does that, I think we lost a juror there, or a
Oh,
timekeeper.
yeah.
Or-
We're good to go.
That's all right. And is the YouTube off there now too?
It does not end until I hit end, so we are still live streaming.
All right, I'd rather not live stream for the moment. If you want to, unless.